Good morning, folks. We're down here, just down at my nice little beach area down on my property. So this video is a really basic intro to just pruning in general. It doesn't need to be complicated. There's really only like a couple really important things that you need to know to prune a tree properly and keep it healthy and looking good. It's really simple. This is like basic pruning 101. Like, it's really all you need to know. There's no terminology. You don't need to you don't even really know like names of whatever, scientific names or anatomy. I mean, all that stuff helps, right? If you read up a bit and understand the function of a tree and how it cycles its nutrients and water up and down and whatever. But this is not that at all. This is just to show people, help people understand really the simplicity of pruning and how you can do it effectively and with minimal damage to your tree, right? Obviously, any pruning cut is a wound to the tree, but that's why it's so important to have just a basic understanding of how to do it properly, and that's going to help the tree heal the wound a lot easier. So, yeah, we're just down on the beach here. Kind of all the trees up around my house are obviously already all pruned up, so I'm just picking out some really few easy examples around. I got a couple trails in around the beach here, so I'll give a few just real easy examples on a few different trees, different scenarios kind of thing, but it's very, very basic. This is how I learned it, over 20 years ago. It was taught to me. So let's get to it. Okay, so we got our first little specimen tree here. I'm just showing it on a small scale, just for a general idea. So the first cut the most important is when you're thinning out a branch, we'll show you the collar of the branch. So where the branch meets, say, the main stem, being the tree or shrub, whatever, you don't want to cut into that collar. And I'll show you where the collar is, and just very simply, it's basically, think of it as like a sort of a force field of resistance for the tree to fight off disease, the spread of disease and that. So think of it as a barrier, sort of a protective barrier. So you don't want to cut into that. You want to stay outside of that. It's very important, especially if, it's a specimen tree that you want to have around and looking good, and don't want to have it succumb to disease or insects or something like that. It's just, the cleaner you can make your cuts, and the precision of your cut it's very important. You can't overstate it. And then using sharp, clean tools is really important too. Clean cut. You don't want to be tearing the bark off. You want as clean of a cut as possible, so you're giving the tree the easiest chance of recovery to heal that wound, right? The messier the cut is, just think of it as like a surgery, on a human or animal or whatever, right? If the doctor's gonna butcher, say they got to amputate something, would you rather have it amputated with the precision tools they use, or should the doctor just take a hatchet and whack it off and hope it heals up, right? So you kind of look at it the same way. Nice clean cut, and it's gonna, right? You're gonna heal better. Nice clean, same concept on a tree. It's gonna heal better and easier. So always keep that in mind. Keep your cuts clean, tools sharp. So we'll look at the collar and pruning up to the collar. Okay, folks, so we've got our stem here. Here's our branch. So hopefully you can kind of tell here. Here's where we meet right here. So you'll see how it sort of funnels out. So here's your collar. You want to stay outside of that. So many times in town you see just horrendous, most of the time, like homeowners, they have no idea. They don't understand the, you know, the basics of pruning and that. And you'll see people like flush cutting, like, because they think like, oh, it'll look like the branch was never there if I cut it flush with you know, with the trunk. No, do not do that. That is the worst thing you could do to a tree pruning it. You're cutting out that defense mechanism that's built into the tree, and it's right in here. And it's chemical and mechanically developed to, if this, basically the idea of this, if this branch was to disease or die or whatever, it is sort of like a shut-off valve to keep spread going into the main tree. So that's just the basic idea of it. But anyway, it's really simple. You got your sharp pruners, saw, whatever. We're outside of that collar. That's it. Very simple. It's kind of blurry, it's hard to see, but so there's the collar. We're outside. Nice clean cut, right? No tear. You don't want to tear the bark off, because you're opening it up too if you have tear in the bark. So you want it nice and clean. So that's basically, it's as simple as that. So we'll do another one here. Something small here, I guess, but so we got, there's our collar there. I mean, it's very small, but right? You want a little bit of a nub there. You don't want it flush, like I was saying. You want, the more you do it, the more like you visually see, you get the hang of it. You can tell when you're outside of it. I'll try to give you a bigger branch. Might be a little easier to see. Okay, so we got a decent one here. This is good. This is actually a good limb to come off. It's got a little bit of loose bark there, and there's a little bit of a decay sort of on there. So it's still alive, but this is a good example here. So here's our collar, as you can see here. So we want to keep outside and have it angled down. You have your water draining off, nice and clean. Okay, so that's good there, right? Like, you don't really want to go in any further than that. We've got our collar right in here, so you don't, I mean, it just looks a little rough because it had a little bit of decay there. So, but nice clean cut. You want to make sure when you're cutting, it's not peeling off and ripping the bark off, right? I mean, it's just going to make it harder for the tree to heal, and it looks like crap. Especially if you do this for a living, that looks like an amateur cut, so you don't want to be doing those. But you want to try and avoid tearing branches off as much as possible. So usually, obviously, like I held that branch, so I had it stabilized. So that's important too, right? If the branch is too big, You know, there's another technique for that. I can show you an example of that, but you're not going to be able to hold a bigger branch up, right? So what you're going to do is what I always do on larger, heavier branches. I do 2 cuts. I cut it well out, you know, a good 2 feet out, and snap it off from there. Because if you do get some dangle and it peels back, you have lots of room. A preventative measure you can do is to put an undercut on the bottom side before you do that top cut, and let it sort of sag down and snap off, and it won't peel up to the tree. But we'll try to show you an example there. Okay, so we've got a little bit bigger of a limb here. Not huge, but it's, you know, should serve its purpose for example. So obviously we got our collar there. That's our finishing cut, obviously, is going to be there. But we don't want to just do a cut there and have this hang down and tear the bark into the trunk of the tree and just make a friggin' mess and make, you know, a nastier of a wound for the tree to try to heal. So to avoid that, I almost need another extension here, but a good practice is to just do a bit of an undercut and then do a little bit of a cut in front. So that way when this drops, it's going to snap off and it's not going to peel any bark up there. All right, so down she goes. Again, there's a little bit there. If you're good with your technique, you can do to sort of like a quick snip at the end and get a nice flush cut off, but I would recommend always just start a bit on the bottom and then finish up on the top. So here's it, just like that. So I don't know if you can see, there's our branch there. So, right? We're outside the collar. You can't tell if you can see it or not. It's a ways up there. Where are you? Oh. Yeah, right there, so. Anyway, I'm sure you get the hang of that. It's try to show it as simple as I can. It is very basic. You don't need any sort of overall anatomy knowledge, whatever. I learned basic pruning years ago. Just, it was like intro on a job that I got, and we had to know how to prune because we were working on a lot of big properties that were worth a lot of money, and they had trees that you could not mess up. So we had to know what we were doing, and that was the basics of what I remember learning. Very simple. So again, just, you know, always make sure it's using a sharp tool. The collar, just keep your cut outside the collar. Don't flush cut. Don't try to get it. You want a little bit of a lip there, right? You want that. You don't want it flush, and you want it nice angled off. Depends on, you know, the angle of the branch and whatever, but you always want to angle, slope your cut off, right? You don't want to have a flat cut where like water can pool up and, you know, cause fungal issues, whatever. So generally just stay out of the collar, slope your cutoff away from the collar, and sharp tools, and that's it. I mean, those concepts pretty much applies to any tree that you want to prune. So there's, you know, a couple other ones there too. When you're not cutting up to a stem, we'll say you're going to just sort of shortening a branch, then you want to prune back to a lateral. So let me just show you a quick example of that. Okay, so now with that reduction cut of going back to a lateral, I'll show you what you don't want to do. Like, so here's the tip of your branch out here. So say you want to shorten back, you don't want it this long, and you go there. You don't want to go there. Basically, you're gonna just have a dead branch there. Just go back to the lateral. There you go. There's your new branch. Right? Your nicely clean cut back to the next lateral. There's your new leader. So, mosquito on there. Very simple, just very basic. And the more you practice with it, you'll see where the right cuts are. And you go from there. Different species of trees, shrubs, whatever. They can vary in, you know, how they can be pruned and whatever, but these two sort of general ideas I've kind of gone over, like staying out of the collar and then pruning back to laterals for like branch reduction. That's pretty much all you really need to start pruning better, pruning proper. That's kind of the foundation of basis of kind of all the pruning cuts is those couple there. Anyway, folks, thanks for checking the vid. I was trying to keep it short and to the point, and you know, help out. I hope it helps out someone out there. I know there's, especially where I live, there's a lot of. I couldn't believe it when I first moved out here. Like the lack of quality of pruning is just. I remember just jaw dropping, just horrendous. Just so different from out west. I had a business going out there in Vancouver, BC, and I don't know, there was just more of a standard out there, but out here, different story. Anyway, folks, thanks for checking the vid if you did, and till next time.